Hello guys, morning. Hello, narinig niyo
Good
ako?
morning po, sir.
Morning. Okay. And bakit konti lang kayo? I hope everyone is doing okay. And by the way, this is the start of our fourth quarter. And our lesson will be starting from analytic trigonometry. Okay, specifically, we will be discussing within the week the fundamental trigonometric identities. So why do we consider it as analytical? Kasi it's more of, ano ba? It's more of analyzing and visualizing the given trigonometric functions without uh, ano ba? Without sketching the graph or without solving for specific values muna. Okay? And because we are also defining the trigonometric fundamental identities, determining the trigonometric fundamental identities, we need to simplify and verify these expressions and of course the equations using the identities. And we need to solve for trigonometric equations manually. So it's more of analytical. Okay? Wala muna tayong mga simplifying lang, yung mga ganon. Alright? Just like in algebra. And these targets or objectives can be attained or achieved when we do know our graphs, okay, for all of the trigonometric functions that we discussed. All right? Mas maganda guys if you already knew or mastered all of them because those graphs of the trigonometric functions will give you an idea what should be the answers and how many should be the answers. All right? So ganun yon. Ganun yung importance ng graph na yon. Okay. So let's start with the fundamental identities. Excuse me. Now, some of these are already or were already discussed, and ano pa ba? Especially, for example, the cosecant and the relationship between cosecant and the sine theta, the secant theta and the cosine, and the cotangent and the tangent. Now, na-mention ko na to before, and we already identified these functions as inverses or reciprocal. Okay, they're reciprocal to one another because sine theta is equal to 1 over cosecant or vice versa, and secant theta is equal to 1 over cosine theta, or we could also say cosine theta is equal to 1 over secant theta. All right, ito naman pwede natin sabihin sine theta. The reciprocal identities will just serve as a review, okay? So 1 over cosecant theta. And of course, the tangent and the cotangent are inverses. So when we say inverses, when we place one trigonometric function on the left, the other side should be placed on the right. However, it should be the inverse, okay? It should be 1 over the remaining function. Cosecant to sine, cosine to secant, and cotangent to tangent. And the other way around. Okay? Now, class, dito iikot yung topic natin for the fourth quarter. Half of the fourth quarter. Kaya, kailangan nyo tong makabisa. And these are just the basic or what we call the fundamental identities. Why fundamental? It's because the complex identities will be coming from these fundamental identities. Dito manggagaling lahat ng identities na pag-aaralan natin. Okay? These are just the simple. Kaya nga tinawag na fundamental. So pag pinaghalo-halo na natin yan, it becomes complex and still some of them are identities, some of them are not. So it depends. So that's why we need to verify and we need to familiarize with all of these identities. Okay, the basic. We have the reciprocal or the inverses, the tangent and the cotangent identities, and also the Pythagorean identities, especially this. These three are very important. Okay? Etong tatlong to. All right. So let me just erase. Okay, so the tangent and cotangent identities. Now we knew that tangent is equal to sine over cosine theta, di ba? And cotangent theta is equal to cosine over sine theta. So if we're going to observe, guys, the relationship between tangent and cotangent, now look at this. This is sine over cosine, and this is cosine over sine. And it goes to show that tangent is the inverse of cotangent, or cotangent is the inverse of tangent, diba? Based on their expression or equivalent expression, the sine and the cosine. Okay, so tama ito. As well as this, tama rin naman to eh. Okay, and for the Pythagorean identities, we have why is it called Pythagorean identities? Because the form of the identity is similar to the Pythagorean theorem. Right, let me just add or accept some of their classmates. Okay, now Pythagorean identities. So ano nga ba yung Pythagorean natin? A square, B square is equal to C square, where A, B, and C are the legs or the sides of a right triangle, and C is the hypotenuse, all right, or the longest side. So here, sine square plus cosine square is equal to 1. And this is in the form of Pythagorean Pythagorean theorem. And 1 plus tangent square is equal to secant square, and 1 plus cotangent square is equal to cosecant square. So here, these two trigonometric identities, guys, were just derived from the fundamental identity, which is sine square plus cosine square is equal to 1. Okay? Eto, dito lang siya galing. And later, we're going to derive them. Para you don't need to memorize everything. And mag-derive na lang tayo. Actually, as of now, hindi ko pa siya memorize, etong dalawang to. Pero nadi-derive ko naman when I solve. Okay? So yun yung importance ng derivation. Or when you know how to derive certain expressions or equations from a given property or equation. Okay? Nakuha ba, class? Okay. Now, at first, before we apply them, let's just differentiate or review this kind of equations. Okay? So we have identity. Naririnig ba ako, guys? We have conditional and contradiction. Okay, do you hear me? Baka hindi mamaya.
Rinig po, rinig po.
Yes, sir.
Okay, mamaya na. Okay, thank you. Kasi yung cellphone ko minsan nag-automatic silent because of the internet. All right? Okay, so from time to time, I'm going to check. So when we say identity, actually these lessons are in grade 7 math. Okay? So review na lang natin. So when we say identity, an equation is an identity when an equation has its solutions value for all of the domain in a given equation. Okay? So whatever the equation is, and if we already identify the domain and the range of the function, grades 8 and 9, diba? Domain and range. Now, once we identify that all of the domain, all of the elements in the domain, identified domain of the function is true, once we substituted them in the given equation, then it becomes identity, or that equation is called identity. Okay? Wait lang, guys. Nakuha ba? Kasi pwede yan true or false. So, identity. The solution is all, not actually all real numbers, but erase natin. Hindi talaga siya all real numbers, but it depends on the domain. Okay, so X is an element of the domain. Yan. And when we say conditional, bali, X is an element of the domain pa rin, pero may restrictions. X is not equal to something. Okay? May restriction na dito. Hindi siya lahat ng numbers sa domain pwede. And contradiction, it only means that X is a null set. Okay? It is an element of null set. Ayan. Or X is an element of null set. So wala siyang solution. Although equation pa rin siya, pero wala siyang solution. Now, when do we say that an equation has no solution? Eto. So, halimbawa, X plus 3 is equal to X minus 1. there's no solution in this equation, diba? That's why it's called contradiction. Okay? Nakuha, guys? Nakuha to, ah. Okay, so, ayan. And I hope you still remember this because this will be part of our lesson. Okay, and let's go back to the given fundamental identities. Before we proceed and apply, I just want to show to you or derive to you the Pythagorean identities. Okay, para at least alam nyo kung paano siya na-derive, and if ever you forgot the identities, then you can easily derive them anytime. All right? Okay. Now, again, let's go back to the unit circle. Diba? Sabi ko sa inyo, unit circle is the most fundamental. Siya yung class natin. Siya yung numbers natin sa trigonometry. Okay. So let's say we have a unit circle here or a circle with the radius r. Kasi sa una, unit circle lang. Pero pag tumagal-tagal na, we are considering circle with radius r or any value of r as long as r is a real number. And we know that this is the angle theta, diba? And this is our xy, ganyan. This is the coordinate, and this is the reference triangle, and this is the reference angle. Ayan. So we have, since it is a right triangle, so let's write the triangle here or draw the triangle here. Sorry, pangit. So this is the theta. Okay, let's say this is the theta r, and this is our y, and this is our x, and this is our r. Since it's a right triangle, we know that x squared plus y squared is equal to r squared. Alam naman natin yan, di ba? It's a common notion already for grade 10. Dapat. Okay. And here, we can easily, we want to integrate or we want to express the given expressions or equation in terms of the trigonometric expressions like the sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, ano ba? And cotangent. Tama ba? Naulit ko ba? Okay, so how do we do that? We know that, diba, from the previous lesson, we know that x is equal to cosine theta and y is equal to sine theta. As we knew, we already, what's this? We already explained and we already discussed this, right? So review lang to. So in this case, how do we do this? How do we arrive at sine squared plus cosine squared? Now, I can divide both sides by r squared. So this becomes x squared over r squared plus y squared over r squared. I hope everyone already did their assignment. So wala kang binigay. Advanced study, diba? Okay. And we know that we can simplify the terms into these expressions. Ayan. Tama, guys, diba? And what is, how do we express x over r and y over r in terms of sine, cosine, tangent, cosecant, secant, cosecant, and cotangent? All right. So we are going to use this triangle that we constructed here. Okay. And itong triangle na to ay nandito siya. So how do we do that? We know that sine theta, okay, let's say sine theta r. Sine theta r is equal to opposite over hypotenuse, that's y over r. However, when r is equal to 1, this is just equal to y, diba? Okay, but we want to generalize our derivation, not just limited to a unit circle, because some of your classmates might be confused that they might be thinking that it's only applicable for a unit circle, not for everything, okay? Not for every circle that we can draw, and that is wrong. Okay, so that's x over r, ganyan. And yung theta r natin class, let's make it theta na lang, or let's make it another angle. Okay, para, let's say theta r is equal to beta. Ayan. So we have, we can substitute. Can you follow, guys? So we can substitute x over r, which is equal to cosine. Okay, so let's say this becomes cosine beta is equal to x over r, and this is equal to sine beta is equal to y over r. All right, I just expressed the angle measure in a simple one or a simpler one. Okay, so this becomes cosine beta square plus, ano ba to? Sine beta square is equal to 1, or we could express this in terms of this, cosine square beta plus sine square beta is equal to 1. So this is now our trigonometric Pythagorean triple, okay? Or trigonometric Pythagorean identity. Sorry, wala palang triple dito. Yeah, walang triple dito. Wait, meron palang triple dito kasi we're not talking about unit circle anymore. We're talking about the general type of circles, okay? So we knew that sine square, let's say x plus y, sorry, cosine square x is equal to 1. Sige na, gumamit na nga tayo ng theta or beta para hindi nakakahilo. Kahit anong angle measure class dito, pwede. Alright? I'm just avoiding x because we use x as a coordinate of the point or circular point in the circle drawn. Kaya I don't want you to have a misconception about the terms or the expressions that we're using. Okay, so let's say beta and beta. So pwede siya maging theta, guys, ha? Beta and theta or any other variable can be used are angle measures, okay? Now, ang dami pa rin nahihilo sa inyo kung ano ba, angle measure ba siya o hindi. Take note, class, if it's an ordinary or the basic trigonometric function, we're talking about betas here are angle measures. However, when we talk about the inverse of sine, the inverse of cosine, we're talking about the values here as the real number values, okay? The quantity, not the angle measure. Nakuha. Kasi here, we're talking about the angles. Angle yung pinag-uusapan natin dito. Dito naman, values. Okay? Yung real, trigonometric function values pinag-uusapan. Okay, anyway. So, sine square beta plus cosine square beta is equal to 1. Now, so sir, you mentioned a while ago that the other two Pythagorean triples or identities are, but triple ako ng triple? Okay, kasi we discussed triples before. The other two Pythagorean identities were just derived from the given Pythagorean identity, which is sine square cosine square. Tama naman, guys. Tama yun. Okay, so how do we derive that, sir, from the sine square plus cosine square is equal to 1? Now, madali lang, class. Eto. The first thing that we need to do is, why not we divide this by sine square beta? Okay? So let's divide this all throughout by sine square beta. Ito naman, sine square beta. Malamang kasi all throughout, diba? So this becomes 1. And this becomes, ano ba mangyayari dito, class? Wait, let me erase and put the color back. Okay, so this becomes cosine beta over sine beta. Oh, another thing I remember. Class, take note, cosine is equal to 1/2 is wrong. The cosine cannot stand alone without the given value here, the variable. Okay, may nakita pa rin akong ganito. I don't know if, hindi ko alam, I don't know, kung sinong may kasalanan. Ako ba? Hindi ko ba siya tinuro na dapat walang ganyan or what? And this one is 1 over sine beta square. Okay? And since the expression or equation is quite complex, all right, now we can simplify this into a more simple or a simpler expression or equation. Thus, we could say that 1 plus and cosine beta plus sine beta is equal to what? We can express this in other trigonometric function. Oh, sige nga, what is the equivalent form of cosine beta and over sine beta pala? Guys. May chat, wait lang. Ayan, sabi ni Kyle and Rayburn, cotangent daw. Tama naman. So, cotangent, and we are now using the ano ba yun? The second identity, and we call that the tangent cotangent identities. Okay? So, we're now using that, and this becomes cotangent beta square. And how about the 1 over sine beta square? 1 over sine beta is equal to cosecant square beta. So we have already identified the other trigonometric Pythagorean identity. Okay? Sir, bakit po siya sinabing identity? It's because all of the values of the domain here are part of the solutions in the given equation. Nakuha, class? Kahit anong value ng beta mo dito, as long as it's part of the domain of cotangent and cosecant beta, then they're all parts of the solutions. Okay? Nakuha, class? Gaya ng sine square beta plus cosine square beta equals 1. It is an identity. If this is an identity, therefore x squared plus y squared is equal to 1 is an identity as well, provided that x and y are all real numbers. Okay? Nakuha, guys. So lahat ng domains dito pwede dito. Okay? So we have already proven the second Pythagorean identity, which is in terms of cosecant, cotangent, and the 1. Or we can express this in terms of cotangent square beta is equal to cosecant square beta minus 1. Pwede mo rin siyang paglaruan, okay? Huwag lang yung feeling ng classmates mo or ibang tao. Yung equation na lang paglaruan natin, okay? So, wala ng space. Now, let's check. So we have already, alin ba? Ito, we have already verified this, or we have proven the third, let me change the color. We have proven the third Pythagorean identity. Now let's try proving or deriving the second Pythagorean identity. Now, ganito yan, class. Ang tanong dyan ay, sir, paano po malalaman kung ano pong ma-derive mo? Ayan, that's a good question. Depende, class, kung anong i-divide mo. Okay? For example, you're aiming for cotangent. So therefore, since cotangent is equal to cosine over sine, therefore, you need to divide this by sine. Why? Because you are aiming for cotangent. Diba? Cosine, ano dapat yung numerator, denominator niya? Dapat sine para magkaroon ka ng cotangent. Okay? And for the next derivation, since we're aiming for tangent, then, one of the objectives here is to find a tangent. Therefore, we need to find or express parts of the given equation, an expression which is sine over cosine. So therefore, we need to divide this by cosine. Okay, let me use this portion muna. So we know that sine square, let's say theta plus cosine square theta is equal to 1. And we know that this is an identity, diba? Okay, again, we're looking for a tangent square expression. So we know that tangent theta is equal to sine theta over cosine theta. Again, guys, in the middle of this discussion, kailangan nyong ma-memorize. If you can't derive, better memorize the identities kasi dito iikot lahat ng ating gagawin. Okay? And hindi lang siya nag-iisa or 6 or 8. Ang dami nila. So, kailangan mong iintindihin muna yung basic. So, I'm going to divide both sides by cosine theta. Cosine square theta to be exact. Okay, cosine square theta. And we know that sine square theta over cosine square theta is equal to what? Tangent square theta plus 1 is equal to what? What is 1 over cosine? That's secant, diba? Secant square theta. So we have already determined the second Pythagorean identity, this one. Okay, by using the sine square theta plus cosine square theta. Or we could express this in terms of tangent square theta is equal to secant square theta minus 1. Nakuha, class? Okay, did you understand the derivation? Madali lang yung derivation, diba? Divide lang. Okay, divide lang, sabi nga nila. Okay, now look at this. When you are talking about tangent, you are using secant. So tangent square, secant square minus 1. Tandaan nyo na. And for cotangent naman, cotangent square, and you are using cosecant. So C to C, T to S. Did you get that, guys? Tandaan nyo na. Okay. So, any question before we apply? Okay, tanong? Wala. Okay, kung walang tanong, di hindi maganda kasi sabi ko nga pag walang tanong it means hindi ko alam kung may inintindihan or baka naintindihan naman. Sana. Okay. But let's work on example number 1. So we need to simplify the expression cos sine t times cosecant t over cotangent t. All right? Pati yung ginamit dito nakakahilo. Anyway, whatever variable you use, it's fine. Okay, so how do we solve this? What do we mean by simplify? When we say simplify, you want to make the expression simpler. All right, so how do we do this? Sabi natin, the fundamentals are sine, cosine. Siya yung pinaka-basic. So therefore, to make it simpler, we need to express the given functions into sine and cosine, or any other trigonometric function which can be used to simplify the given expression, diba? So let's copy. Cosine t, cosecant t over cotangent t. Ay, bakit x2? Nasanay sa x. Okay. Ayan. So, how do we simplify this, guys? We know that cosine t is already in simplest form. Not actually, I'm not saying that cosecant is not in simplest form. Pwede naman siya mag-categorize as simplest kasi ano ba, wala na siyang ibang way to, I mean, it's part of the fundamental, diba? Or we can still simplify cosecant as 1 over sine. Pwede naman siyang ganun. Kaya better simplify first the given expressions. Okay? So, pwede nyo munang paglaruan yung mga expressions na yan. Factors or terms. So, what is cosecant? Cosecant is 1 over sine t. So, pag ginawa ko dito, hindi ko naman siya masisimplify dito, di ba? So, anyway, let's just play with it. Okay? And we know that cotangent is equal to, ano bang cotangent? Cosine t over sine t. Di ba, guys? Tama ba? Okay, so now let's simplify the given equation. I mean the expression. So this becomes cosine t. Ito algebra lang to, guys. T times sine t over cosine t. Okay, so here we have already, so far we have simplified the given expression, and we can cancel out cosine theta. All right. And sir, di ba we don't know the value of cosine theta? It could be 0. Now, at this point, we're not talking about values of 0 here since we're talking about trigonometric identities. All right? So nakadepende tayo sa domain nila. Since it's part of the given expression, therefore, this expression is not undefined. And we could say that the values are not 0, or there's no way to for this expression to have an undefined or an indeterminate value or expression. Okay, so I can cancel this out as well. Oh, so we got 1. Ayan, so 1 lang pala yan, sir. Yes, 1 lang naman ang gustong sabihin ito. So ano bang gustong sabihin nito, sir, no 1? Ang gustong sabihin niya, class, kahit anong value ni t na ibigay natin dito, the answer will always be equal to 1. Okay? And if you want to check that with your calculator, you can also do that. Or pwede nyo rin siya, guys, i-check sa Desmos or GeoGebra. Sketch mo yung graph nitong expression na to. And you will see a line, a straight line, a vertical line that passes through the x, okay, coordinate of the x-axis or at the x-axis. Gets? Nakuha ba, class? Okay, ganito, class. Magtanong na habang sample number 1 pa lang tayo, i-verify na yung mga kailangan i-verify, yung mga misconceptions nyo para at least alam natin na we are addressing the correct concepts in your mind. Okay? Para hindi na siya maiipon at matabunan pa. Kasi pag natabunan niya ng iba, wala na. Magiging maling conception na yan para sa inyo. Okay? Okay. You can type in your question, or you can just unmute your microphone. Okay, now let's work on number 2. In number 2, simplify the expression into a single expression in terms of sine or cosine x. So dapat pala, masimplify natin to at ang matira ay sine or cosine, or pwede ring 1, pwede ring number, depende. Okay? Depende kung anong makuha natin. So let's work on this. So sine x, and we know that cotangent is equal to cosine x over sine x plus cosine x over 2 times, ano bang cotangent? Cosine x over sine x. Oh, by the way, class, there are so many ways on how to simplify this. You can just use algebra and make sure to follow the rules, okay? As long as you're following the rules, then there's nothing to worry about. So I can simplify this out. I can cancel this one. So this becomes cosine plus cosine is 2 cosine x over 2 cosine x over sine x. Sir, ba't di mo na lang reciprocate? Mamaya na. Relax. Okay. So I can cancel out 2 cosine x times, oh, excuse me. Oh, but guys, avoid using x for multiplication. Kasi minsan nakakagulo yan sa variable. Better use parentheses. So we have sine x over cosine x. Ayan. So I can cancel out cosine x and we have sine x. So therefore, guys, once we simplify this expression, it's just equivalent to sine x. Okay? Sine x lang naman pala siya. Nakuha ba, class? Nakuha yun ha? Okay, good. Sana naman. Okay, habang nag-start pa lang tayo. Again, start pa lang to ng analytical or analytic trigonometry. Okay, now let's work on example number 3. Okay, for number 3, marami na to, di ba? It becomes more complex and complex and complex. So this becomes, ano ba? Sine or cosine pa rin. So let's substitute some of the values. Ano ba? Wait lang, guys. Suggestion or advice ko lang, better use sine and cosine for all of the functions or terms or factors in a given expression class for you to simplify them right away. Okay? Dito, saka na kayo mag-apply ng mga Pythagorean identities, mga ganun. Okay? So we have sine over cosine x times cosine x plus cosine x over sine x. Diba? Sobrang complicated na niya. So 1 over cosine x plus sine x over cosine x. Tama ba, class? Yes, tama naman. Malaki naman sila ng sulat mo. Oo nga, no? Napansin ko rin. Yeah, mahirap kasi magsulat. Okay. Now here, I have here sine x, cosine x. So, factoring class, algebraic operations or algebraic procedures are very useful here. Let's say factoring, simplifying, all right? So, dapat alam niyo yung mga factoring principles. So, since may cosine dito, at may cosine din dito, I can factor out cosine such that I can simplify or cancel the cosine here. So this becomes sine x over cosine x times cosine x times, ayan, alam ko naman may mamamali dyan sa factoring. So this becomes 1 over sine x. Tama, di ba? Okay, all over 1 plus sine x over cosine x. Ayan, algebra nyo ha. Okay, so I can simplify this one. Ayan na, na-simplify ko na siya. And here, so let me change the color. Okay, I can simplify this. Ito, pwede ko siyang gawin sine x plus 1 over sine x. Tama ba, class? Okay, so since I can express this in terms of this, I can now cancel the denominator sine x to another sine x on the numerator here. So let's just rewrite the given expression. So this becomes sine x times sine x plus 1 over sine x. Tama ba? Yeah, tama naman. Times, I can now reciprocate, guys, the denominator. Okay, reciprocate. Take the reciprocal of the denominator. So this becomes, ano nga ba yun? Cosine x over, ano nga ba? 1 plus sine x. 1 plus sine x. And this becomes, I can simplify, cancel. And I can also cancel this. So this becomes cosine x. So therefore, this expression, guys, expression lang siya, di ba? Hindi siya equation. Since hindi siya equation, hindi rin siya identity. So this expression is just equal to, ano nga ba nakuha natin? Cosine x. Cosine x lang naman pala siya, class. Okay, kinomplicate lang yung expression. Did you understand that, Mi1? Again, if you have questions, itanong nyo na agad-agad para nagsisimula pa lang tayo. Kasi pag naging complicated na yan, ayan na. Congratulations na. Okay, so let's work on example number 4. Magta-time na. So those who are still free, you can rejoin the VC, all right, if we will not be disconnected, and we can discuss further the given examples. So simplify the expression. By the way, class, hindi pa siya na-upload sa PayHub kasi hindi pa siya na-approve. All right? Okay, inintay ko pa yung approval ng CID office.